Usually the way we approach learning a new language feels a bit like sitting in a windowless room, just, you review these disconnected cards, and eventually the sheer volume of it all just leaves you feeling completely overwhelmed.
Right, because there's no context.
But what if the city itself became your dictionary? Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're exploring a really fascinating two-app system, the Korean Vocabulary Flashcard app, and its companion, the Flashcard Manager.
It's a really unique setup.
It is. And our mission for you today is to unpack exactly how this system turns language learning into a frictionless, story-driven virtual journey through the very real streets of Seoul.
And what this whole approach reveals about the future of digital learning and data ownership, too.
Right. Because we know you want to learn efficiently, and you want to do it without that dreaded information overload. So we are going to explore a tool designed to strike exactly that balance.
It really is a radical departure from the traditional approach to education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are moving entirely away from abstract lists and placing the act of learning directly into a geographical context.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
Because the most defining feature of this app isn't just that it has Korean vocabulary words, it's how it uses actual geography as a mental scaffolding for learning.
Right.
Instead of just handing you a deck of 1,000 random words and wishing you luck, the app actually maps its vocabulary to 350 real Seoul metro stations.
Yeah, you aren't just swiping right or left on a screen. You are following what the app calls routes.
Routes, okay.
The mechanism behind those routes is that they unfold chronologically. That is, it's crucial for how our brains process narrative. The vocabulary surfaces in the exact order a traveler would actually encounter those concepts on the street.
Oh, wow. It's like turning a deck of disconnected flashcards into a personalized guided walking tour.
Exactly.
You learn the words for a pedestrian crosswalk, then maybe the vocabulary for a local cafe, and then, the phrases you need for the small corner shop down the street, all sequenced along a physical path.
And there's a special focus on the Seoul Metro Line 2 loop.
Right, I saw that. That's 79 stations connecting all the major districts, right?
Yeah, and the app actually plays stylized animations between the stations with real line information to simulate the commute.
That is so cool. Now, for the traditionalists listening who might just want a standard study session, you can still use categories to group words by theme, like food or transport, using the exact same data set.
Right, you don't have to use the map.
But focusing on the spatial element for a second, I have to ask, if I'm studying these virtual routes, does it actually give me a practical geographical sense of Seoul for when I eventually visit? Or is it just a visual gimmick to make a boring flashcard app look pretty?
What's fascinating here is the underlying cognitive mechanism at play. It is absolutely not a gimmick.
Okay.
What we are looking at is the psychological benefit of spatial memory. Human beings have, we've evolved to remember locations and physical routes incredibly well, far better than we remember abstract lists of data.
That makes sense.
So by learning words in a specific geographic order, the city's layout itself becomes the filing cabinet for your recall.
A mental filing cabinet.
Right. If you are trying to remember the word for bakery, your brain doesn't just search a mental spreadsheet of thousands of words. It remembers the spatial relationship that the bakery was right next to the metro stop.
Wow.
It completely changes the context of a study session from tedious rote memorization to spatial navigation.
So you are mentally walking the streets and building a cognitive map before you even book a flight. That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is.
Now, where the words are placed on a map is one thing, but what is actually on these cards is another. And this app packs an incredible amount of linguistic data into a very small space. Yeah. You've got the Korean word in Hangul, the English meaning, in-context example sentences, and part of speech tags.
And crucially, they also include honorific tags.
Yeah, you never want to accidentally use a highly formal business Korean phrase when you are
just trying to order street food from a casual vendor.
Exactly. That would definitely get you some strange looks. But this brings up a design question. When you look at the user interface, you get a green dot for words you've mastered, an amber dot for words you've seen but haven't quite locked in, and a red dot for brand new words.
Oh, and you can toggle between dark and light themes, too. You instantly know where you stand in your learning journey.
Right, so you're not bombarded immediately.
Exactly. The deeper data, like the exact physical distance to the nearest metro entrance or the specific formal honorific tag, is available, but it doesn't shout at you. Good digital design is about layering information so the learner can dig exactly as deep as they want to at any given moment.
Without being forced to process the entire database at once.
Precisely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You aren't just passively flipping these carefully layered cards. The app actually shifts you into active participation through its gamified features, specifically something it calls the word game.
Yes.
It's basically geocaching, but for vocabulary.
I love that geocaching analogy because it highlights the shift from passive review to an active, location-based scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
In a traditional app, you just click Reveal to see if you knew the answer. Here, you have to actively search your memory based on a spatial context.
And the mechanics of that hunt are so clever. You get a clue pointing to a word. If you think you know it and submit an incorrect word, the app doesn't just slap a big red X on the screen.
Right. It gives you progressive hints that unfold the closer you get.
There's even a Get Help button that actually utilizes the physical geography we were just talking about. It displays the physical distance from your current virtual location to the correct word's location as an added clue.
Which is such a unique way to use the map.
It is. All the while, a scorecard is tracking your progress behind the scenes, monitoring metrics like how few cards you viewed or how few help requests you made before completing the hunt.
Right.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Whenever I hear gamification in an education app, my brain immediately thinks dopamine gimmick. Are we actually learning better because there's a scorecard, or is the app just hijacking our attention so we keep clicking?
This raises an important question about how we define effective learning in a digital age. Interestingly, the developers candidly admit that there is no scientific evidence proving this specific gamified method is inherently superior for raw, short-term memory retention.
Oh, really?
Yeah. However, they highlight a much more pragmatic truth. The ultimate goal of any educational tool is building consistent study habits.
Okay, that makes sense.
Gamification, especially a spatial scavenger hunt that actively engages your problem-solving skills, creates the motivation to return. In language acquisition, showing up every single day is the single most critical factor for long-term success.
For sure.
If the game mechanics get you to open the app instead of mindlessly scrolling social media, it has already won half the battle.
Because the best textbook in the world is completely useless if you never open it.
Exactly.
Now, if gamification gets you motivated to open the app every day, the absolute last thing you want is a roadblock when you actually do. And that brings us to the most radical part of this system's philosophy, how it handles your data to keep things entirely frictionless.
This is a huge point.
The moment you land on this app, there are 0 friction points. There are no signups. There are no passwords. There are no analytics walls or tracking pixels. You are studying within seconds of opening the browser.
This is a major paradigm shift compared to most modern educational technology. I mean, usually they demand your personal data before letting you see a single flashcard.
Oh, absolutely.
The way they achieve this zero friction environment is by storing all your data purely in your local browser memory.
So for anyone not familiar with those terms, basically, instead of sending your study progress to a company's server somewhere in the cloud, the app uses your web browser's own internal filing cabinet.
Right. It never leaves your device.
Your progress, your notes, maybe a mnemonic you wrote down or a slang phrase a Korean friend taught you, it all stays strictly on your computer or phone. You can export those personal notes and your progress to a CSV file in one tap if you want to look at it in a spreadsheet.
Or you can do a full backup, which exports your entire vocabulary world, including embedded images, into a single file.
Think of it like a portable digital suitcase. You just drop that suitcase into another browser on a different computer, and you resume your study session instantly.
It's incredibly portable.
But I have to point out the elephant in the room regarding convenience. Think about how often you casually clear your browser history or cache.
Yeah, people do that all the time.
If you do that here without downloading your digital suitcase first, your past 3 months of studying Korean are just gone. Isn't that a massive risk for a serious learner?
Well, it is undeniably a risk, and it requires a fundamental change in user behavior. You have to take responsibility for exporting that file.
Right.
But this system champions a core belief that is becoming increasingly rare in tech knowledge, is most valuable when you actually own it.
That's a strong philosophy.
By keeping everything local in your browser's filing cabinet and making the export process entirely transparent, this system empowers the learner. The freedom to move your data across devices without ever being trapped behind a login wall is treated as a higher priority than the convenience of autosync.
It's treating the learner like an adult who owns their own brain and their own data.
Perfectly said.
So we spent all this time exploring the learner's journey, walking the virtual routes, playing the scavenger hunt games, taking ownership of the data. But now we have to pull back the curtain on how these intricate spatial vocabulary worlds are actually built.
Right, the back end.
Because there's a whole second application that drives this entire experience, the Flashcard Manager.
The manager is the authoring environment. It is the workshop where content builders, language teachers, or even just enthusiastic advanced students create the structured data that feeds the Flashcard app.
It's basically like giving a language teacher the level editor for a video game.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a structured editor with 6 distinct tabs, and the final output is that single digital suitcase.
And those 6 tabs represent the different dimensions of a vocabulary word. The first is the word info tab, which is the linguistic heart of the entry.
What goes in there?
This is where the creator inputs the Hangul, the English meaning, and the example sentences. But the location info tab is where the real magic happens. This is where the physical city of Seoul enters the data.
Right.
The way the manager handles location data is remarkably sophisticated for an educational tool. A creator doesn't just arbitrarily type in a neighborhood name. They drop a real-world visual anchor.
So if you are a creator to the app.
Yes. The manager automatically reads the EXIF metadata, which are the hidden GPS tags your phone attaches to your photos, and it auto-populates the exact GPS coordinates.
That is so smart.
Then it calculates the physical distance to the nearest Seoul Metro station automatic.
Once the locations are set, the creator moves to the route info tab. If the manager is a level editor, this tab is where the pacing happens.
Pacing is everything.
Words aren't just tagged to a route, they are sequenced. You get a rich storyline view, which lets the creator read the narrative end to end to check the flow. Does the journey make sense? Are the example sentences logically progressing from the crosswalk to the cafe?
To build on your video game analogy, just like a good level designer spaces out the easy enemies and the hard boss fights, the creator uses the show routes modal to audit the pacing of the vocabulary.
Oh, that's cool.
The teacher can see exactly where the Metro Line 2 animations will break up the study session, ensuring the learner doesn't get hit with 50 complex words at one station and only 2 simple ones at the next.
That level of control is incredible. Plus, there is a
Spotlight.
an image share tab where local businesses or tourism boards can actually sponsor specific vocabulary spots.
Right.
You could theoretically have a real bakery sponsor the flashcard for the word bakery.
Which opens up fascinating, completely new possibilities for localized, community-supported education models.
Thinking about the teacher's perspective, this raises an amazing prospect. If I'm a language teacher, does this mean I can build a totally unique curriculum, say, focusing entirely on advanced business Korean, geographically mapped around the financial district in Uido, and just hand my students that single digital suitcase file?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer is a resounding yes. And that is the true power of this ecosystem. The 2 apps form a complete self-sustaining loop.
Creators build, learners explore.
Exactly. The creators build the worlds in the manager, and the learners explore them in the Flashcard app. It completely decentralizes the curriculum. A teacher can tailor a highly specific spatial journey for a student's exact professional or personal needs.
That's amazing.
And the better the teacher's storytelling and pacing within that manager app, the more valuable the spatial repetition becomes for the student. It elevates vocabulary from a generic list into a curated, meaningful experience.
It completely reframes what an educational application can be. So let's distill all of this down for you listening right now. What we've explored today is how learning can evolve from flat, tedious memorization into an immersive spatial experience.
Yeah.
By mapping vocabulary to real physical locations, honoring your right to own your data without sauce lock-in, and giving creators incredibly powerful storytelling tools, this system respects both your time and your intelligence.
It proves that we don't have to sacrifice depth to achieve convenience. We can have robust data, context-rich examples, and geographical anchoring, all presented in a way that respects our cognitive limits.
It is a brilliant execution of a genuinely novel idea. If the windowless room of rote memorization is finally obsolete, the sprawling city outside is just waiting to become our classroom. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring.
See you next time.
Oh, one other thing that was not mentioned. You can create a video that a learner can start playing and then continue to listen to it, while at the same time they swipe through cards of matching words that you have created for a speed review without any distraction to the learner and not following a route.
안녕하세요. 만나서 반갑습니다. 제 이름은 지아입니다. 성함이 어떻게 되세요? 잘 지내세요? 좋은 하루 보내세요. 저희 사이트를 방문해 주셔서 감사합니다.